Hi everyone, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you how I made this top. So I was like, okay, look, we need a refresh. We need something new. But I don't want to go out and buy something, so I was like, why don't I just make something? So I found one of my old dresses that I do not wear. I've never worn it actually, because it's like a nightgown dress, so it's like too sheer to wear out and I don't really wear it at home. So basically what I did was I took that dress and I turned it into something new, this top. So today I'm going to show you how to do it. So I've never made a top like this before, and it was actually really easy. It's only 3 pieces, so if you're a beginner and you wanted to sew something, I'd recommend this. This is fun. So basically if you want to learn how to make this top, keep watching and I will, take you to sewing land. I'll teach you how to sew it. Alright, let's go. So we're starting with this dress. It's like a basic white dress with just a couple like flower patterns on it or whatever, and it doesn't really have a lot of shape because it's like a nightgown. So what I've done is I've just laid it out and I've got a little pattern template thing that I did. Basically I just measured out how wide I wanted like my one side to be, and then how long I wanted it, and there are a bunch of different like ways that you can do this. I'll show you in a second. Another way you can do it is just like measure the length of like a bikini top or something that fits, and measure the width of one of the cups, and that way you can just get like the length and the width and the shape and the size, whatever. But you get what I'm saying. You can get measurements from like existing clothing and stuff like that. And I just wanted to see like how long the straps need to be for me to tie around my neck. So basically I just like laid out the strap and measured it all the way, and that was my pattern. And then basically you're gonna need a fabric for the lining, so I just used these old pajama pants. And then you're gonna have to turn your fabric or whatever it is inside out so that you're drawing on like the not nice side, so that if you get like pen marks and stuff you can just get rid of it, or it doesn't really matter because you can't see it. So then once you turn it inside out, just lay it nice and flat, and then you're gonna put your pattern on top, and then you're gonna start to trace around the pattern. So I just used a Muji pen. You can use literally any pen, ballpoint, whatever. It's just a pen, honestly. And just go around. Try not to use Sharpie though, because that could like go through and it can stain and be really hard to remove. So I'd go for something like a light ballpoint pen. Anyway, then I just started tracing that, and then after I finished it, I swapped over to the next one, and I put them like the thick end of the triangle with a thin side, so it kind of like, save fabric. And I also kind of like deviated from the pattern just a little bit to make sure that the ends were as thick as I wanted, and then do the same thing with the lining fabric. So then I basically just went ahead and cut along all the lines that I drew. So obviously if you take into account seam allowance before you draw your pattern, like you can just follow exactly the lines that you drew. But if you forgot about seam allowance, this is where I'd add a little bit extra. So when you're cutting out, just cut around the lines, maybe with like half a centimeter on each side or something, because you want to leave about an inch of seam allowance, like at most. So not too much, otherwise you'll just have a lot of excess. But yeah, just make sure that you take into account seam allowance and draw it into your pattern, because that'll make your life 100% easier. And here I am just cutting them out and trying to make sure that they're the same, because like, you don't want two mismatching ones. And anyway, if they're a little bit different, you can't really tell. Just make sure that the triangle bits are, pretty much the same. But like the thinner bits, you can't really tell. So here are the pieces you should be left with, 2 pretty much identical pieces. Then go ahead and grab your lining fabric, and you're gonna want to trace it out and cut 2 of these, like I'm trying to signal here too. So then basically what I did was I just grabbed the piece of my fabric that I cut out from like the pattern, and then I just pinned it onto the leg of the pant, which is actually what I'm using for the lining fabric. It's just some old pants that I never wear anymore, because they're just like pajama pants that I literally don't fit. So what I did was I pinned it to 2 layers of fabric, so I would only have to cut it out once and it would be exactly identical and just save me a whole lot of time. So that's what I did, and then I just went all the way along after I pinned it and cut it all out, and There was actually a pocket there which I tried to avoid, but I couldn't. So yeah, and I just cut it out, and then I got 2 identical pieces at the end of it. So you're gonna put one of the lining fabric and one of the patterned fabric, I guess, and you're gonna put them right sides together, and then you're gonna pin, and just make sure that you go all the way around except for the bottom, so leaving that space open so that we can flip it inside out at the end of it. So you're gonna want to do this for both sides, obviously, so that we can sew them, and make sure that you're pinning the right way so that when you go into the sewing machine you can actually like pull the pins out, because the first time I did it like all the pins were going the wrong way, and so it made it impossible, so I take it out and redo all of it again. So don't make that mistake, pin it the right sides. So it should look something like this when you finish pinning, and then just set this aside and let's cut out the next piece. So now what you're going to do is you're going to measure a rectangle basically, so make the length of it as long as your underbust, so basically measure your underbust, or like measure a bikini top or something, and then add like an inch for seam allowance, and that's going to be the length of your rectangle piece of fabric. And then for your height, you're going to want to measure from your underbust to wherever you want the top to end. So like if you want it to end right above your belly button, measure from that distance, and then you're going to double that and add like an inch for seam allowance, and you're basically going to make that the height, and you're going to cut out this rectangle because you're going to want to be able to fold it in half. That's why you're doubling the height, which I'll show you in a second, but basically just cut it out of your fabric. And then next we're going to have to hem the sides. So basically on your rectangle there'll be a shorter side, and you're going to hem both of those lengths because you can't just leave those raw. But for your longer side, both of them, there's a way that you can completely skip the step of hemming, because when you sew everything together at the end, like you'll be able to hide those raw edges, which I will show you. But if you are a beginner and you are unsure and you can't really do this, then I'd recommend just hemming it first, so that the last step, when you sew everything together, it becomes much easier. So it was finally time to start sewing, so I just set it on stitch number 9 on my machine, which is just a small straight stitch, and I just stitched, reverse, and then stitched to make sure that it was in place, and I'm stitching all the way around the line, and just using the pins as like a guide, but also taking them out as I go, just to make sure that all of it is correct and that I'm making like a uniform line all the way around. And basically just keep sewing until you get to the end, making sure that you do not sew off the large base part closed. So just making sure that that's open so we can flip it inside out. And then when you get to a corner, basically all you have to do is make sure that the needle is in, lift up your presser foot, rotate the fabric, put your presser foot back down, and then just keep on sewing. So if you've never done that before, just try it out. And if you have any problems, there are also lots of tutorials on the internet showing you how to like rotate around that corner edge. So yeah, just go ahead and do that and keep sewing until you get to the end, because you'll make it, I promise. So then once you finish sewing, turn it inside out through the base, the side we left open. And I use like a pen, you can use like a chopstick, anything that's like really, like kind of long and thin, to sort of poke through the end, because that part I just couldn't reach with my finger. And that's it, and then you've got it inside out, and do this same thing on the other side, and then you're like halfway there. And here you can see I'm just literally sewing up the hem, making sure I do a backward stitch to hold it in place, and just sewing a straight stitch all along the hem. And this is the 2 shorter sides of our rectangle, so just go ahead and hem that off. And also if you are doing the longer lengths, OMG, if you are doing the longer lengths or sides of the rectangle as well, make sure to do it here before you move on to the next step. So by now you should have 2 triangle pieces and 1 rectangle piece with all your hems done. And basically now what we're gonna do is we are going to pin them together to sew. So fold it in half, hot dog style, which is how I heard someone describe it, so that's actually really accurate. So fold it down lengthways, and you're going to try and find the middle. So how you do this is you basically just fold it in half, but this time sandwich way, I guess, and then you'll have the middle. You can put a little pin down there just to make sure that you don't lose that position. I just put my finger there. But yeah, so basically make sure that you know that position, and then you're going to grab your two triangle pieces and you're going to pin them on evenly, knowing now where the middle is. That is sort of like where the two triangle pieces will touch. So after you've marked down the middle, put your triangle pieces, you want to put them on the inside of the folded fabric. So this is the whole reason that we've done a like folded double layer thing, so that we can sandwich them in between. So open it up, put them inside, and make sure that they're all even and lined up. Check that on either side you've got equal lengths. You've got equal lengths. Yes. So check that on either side you have equal lengths of, fabric. So just make sure that that was all lined up and correct, and then I pinned everything down from the start of the rectangle to the end. And now the final part, you just sew everything together with a straight stitch, once again making sure that you backward stitch at the front and the end. The start, yeah. At the beginning and the end, make sure that you do your little backward stitch to make sure that it's all gonna stay really well. And try to make this stitch as neat as possible, because this one will be semi-visible because it's on the outside. So it's not going to be on the inside, which is it's not a bad thing. Like, it could be a little bit scary, but alternatively you could have like done it on the inside if you didn't do a double layer, but I've decided to do it this way because I just thought that it was, better. So anyway, that's what I've done. Just stitched it all the way to the end, and then just to finish up the back. So now to create the corset backing, I just used these straps from the existing dress. I just cut them all into 3 different pieces, but all the same length. And then I just pinned them onto the back because I wanted 3 different loops, and I'm just using pins to pin them equally spaced. And then I sewed it all together, and that's what it looked like. And then I put some ribbon through, I did both sides, and ta-da! Now time for the final look.
Alright, so that was it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you had a great time, a wonderful time over here learning how to make this top, and if you did do it, let me know. Leave a comment and let me know how it went for you. And yes, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or night or morning, whatever it is for you, and I will see you around. Goodbye.
To see you. We lost a couple of nights to tequila. We taking shots, we don't need margaritas. You made a stop, now you're late for the water. It's cause it's taking you 20 minutes to order. So when he's making you cry, here's my shoulder. You know you treat it like shit, so I told her